Welcome to The Explainer. When we talk about managing projects, we always talk about risk, right? But what if I told you the way most of us look at risk is, well, it's flat. We're missing a whole dimension. Today, we're going to talk about a powerful addition to your toolkit, one that lets you see the dangers hiding in plain sight.
So let's just jump right in. Think about it for a second. When you're sizing up a risk on a project, what's your go-to method? What are the two big questions you always ask? I bet for most of us, it's a pretty standard routine that kicks off with a familiar framework. And here they are. It almost always boils down to these two biggies. First, probability. How likely is this thing to actually happen? And second, impact. Okay, if it does happen, how bad is the damage going to be? It's like this classic little matrix we've all got wired into our brains.
All right, so we're looking at the two faces of risk. And look, this standard approach is standard for a good reason. It's absolutely essential. But it's not the whole story, not by a long shot.
Because what about the risks you just can't see coming? The ones that lurk just under the surface. Those are the ones that really keep project managers up at night. And our standard probability and impact checklist, it can miss them completely.
And this is a great way to think about it. That standard view of risk, it's like having a magnifying glass, but you've got no idea where to point it. You're searching, sure, but are you even looking for the right clues? To spot these hidden dangers, these invisible threats, we need a totally different kind of lens.
Okay, so let's introduce that new lens. This is where we add a third, hidden dimension to our thinking. It's called detectability.
So what is detectability? Well, it's the ability to spot a potential failure before it blows up and impacts your customer. It's not about the risk itself, it's about our ability to see it coming. Think of it as a measure of how good your radar is. And this isn't some brand new idea, by the way. It's a key part of serious risk analysis methods like FMEA, failure mode and effects analysis, where it's used to check how good your early warning systems really are.
All right, so why does seeing matter so much? What's the big deal about adding this third dimension? I mean, what's the real strategic value of spotting something early?
Well, here's the power of detectability in a nutshell. It completely changes the game. It creates a much fuller picture of your risks, and it helps you prioritize way more effectively. But the real magic, it forces your team to think differently. You stop just asking what if, and you start asking, okay, but how would we know it's about to happen? That one simple question pushes you to set up better monitoring, to be proactive instead of reactive, and to avoid getting totally blindsided by those sneaky stealth risks.
Let's get really practical here. Take a look at this table. In a normal world, you'd probably focus all your energy on risk A, right? High probability, medium impact. Makes sense. But now, look at risk B. Low probability, sure, but the impact is high. And here's the kicker. Its detectability is very low. You basically can't see it coming. That, my friends, is the stealth risk. That's the project killer. And once you factor in detectability, you realize risk B should actually be your highest priority.
And this graph, this shows you exactly what happens when one of those stealth risks hits. That top line, that's your plan, your budget, your planned value. But then an undetected problem strikes. Look what happens. Your actual cost just shoots through the roof, while the value you're actually delivering just flatlines. That growing gap between the lines, that's where projects fail. It's a huge, costly mess that could have been avoided if we just had a better way to detect the problem earlier.
Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, right? But how do you actually do it? How do you put detection into practice in your real-world workflow? Well, the good news is it's not as complicated as you might think.
Here's the enhanced process. You're not throwing away what you already do. Step 1, you identify your risks. Step 2, you assess probability and impact. You're already doing that. But now you add a new critical step 3. You rate the detectability for each of those risks. And then you prioritize based on all 3 factors. Just by slotting in that one extra step, you completely change how you see the entire risk landscape. It transforms your priorities.
So this really brings us to the unseen advantage here. When you focus on detection, it's not just about ticking a box for better risk management. It's about giving yourself a genuine competitive edge. And this really gets to the heart of it. As the quote says, risk management is supposed to be a proactive and preventative process. The whole point isn't just to be good at cleaning up messes, it's to stop the mess from happening in the first place. And detectability, that's the engine that powers that entire preventative mindset.
It all boils down to this. It's about being prepared before a risk becomes a full-blown reality. When you build detectability into your process, you gain this incredible advantage, the ability to see the unseen. You stop just bracing for impact, and you start actively scanning the horizon, ready to jump on the first tiny sign of trouble.
So when you add detectability to your toolkit, you're not just managing risk anymore. You're starting to master it. You're making a fundamental shift away from just hoping for the best and toward preparing with real foresight and control. So I'll leave you with this to think about. What's the one unseen risk in your work that most needs a closer look?